If you knew how full this brain was,
I
goodness
get that.
me.
I get that.
Goodness actual me. Right. Okay, here we are. First Thursday of the new year. Second Thursday of the new year. First QT conversations of the new year. 11 a.m. Thursday mornings are qualified tutor conversations, which is our answer to the podcast. It is a live ramble on topics relevant to tutors. And I say ramble because I have no idea where it's going to take us, but I do have a juicy topic for you this week. Um, I spent most of the Christmas holidays overhauling our website. I don't think I made it any better, but but I did get to tweak and fiddle. And whilst I was doing all of that, of course, I was thinking about what it is that we really do around here. So qualified tutor is raising standards in tutoring together. And what and why. And of course, it's really, really nice that we get together and swap jumper recipes. But if there's not purpose behind it, then it's not a professional development community. It's just a nice bunch of friendly people. This is a professional development community. I show up here to make a difference, and so do you. The difference that we're making is for ourselves and for our students. And this is what it comes down to for me. Ready? Confident tutors create confident students. It's obvious once you say it. But there's so much thinking and intention and skill sitting behind that. So that's what I would like to discuss today. Confident tutors create confident students. Do you agree? And why? Claire Talbot, go for it.
Ah. No, I do agree because I think that if we show confidence, then other people will absorb that. And I think that if I think right back to when I actually taught in class, sorry, I got a cat hair moment. Um, I got given one year, a year six class that was slightly below where they needed to be, or where they're expected to be, shall we say?
Nice.
Um, and by the end of the year, they were all achieving expected standards and above because I was really in maths, because I was really confident with what I was doing, how I could explain it, how I could make it fun, how I could make it come alive. And the feedback I got that year in particular was amazing. And I think that now with tuition, because I can do it how I want to do it and I can work closely with the kids, then I feel confident that I'm making a difference and they take from that energy.
So you've just described a virtuous cycle, which Dee's put in the chat as well. Dee, would you say the way what you've just put in the chat there, please?
Yeah, seeing the confidence grow in my students feeds my self-belief and helps to deal with my imposter syndrome. And if I feel, and I absolutely agree what Claire said, if I'm feeling equipped to work with my students, then they're going to feed off that. It's a wonderful positive feedback, and it's a joy to be part of.
Emma, can I call on you next? And I'm gonna just push you to describe the inverse for me. So, when a tutor lacks confidence.
I think teachers and therefore by extension tutors are sometimes very good actors, and we can put on a face and show our confidence and give the kids confidence without feeling confident ourselves at times.
Fake it till you make it.
Yes, I think you can do that.
That's
And I
beautiful
think
because have
the
you ever,
amount of broken teachers in the classroom prove that.
yeah. Have you ever heard of the behavior cycle? We had a well-being coach come into school once to do an inset about behavior management, and it was a really, really lovely approach because she was saying that thoughts create feelings, which create behaviors. And then the behaviors, of course, have repercussions, which creates the next thought and da da da. Where in that cycle can you intervene? And really, it's about behaviors. I can't stop myself or a child thinking a thing, and the feeling comes so quickly afterwards, but I can help them to change their behavior, their response to those thoughts and feelings. And in the same way, what Emma's saying there is you can lack confidence, but do the things you need to either appear confident or, more interestingly, become confident.
And that's where that cycle starts, because if you put yourself out there as confident, there's a trend at the minute of be the main character in your business. Like, if you put that persona out, people start treating you like that, and then it snowballs. And it's the same thing that Dee and Claire were talking about. If you can portray confidence,
main character energy.
yeah, that's the word. Thanks, Claire. That was what I was looking for. Main character energy. But it is that thing of, if you show confidence, then the kids are confident, then your confidence naturally builds. You don't necessarily have to be confident at the start.
So I like it and I feel it. Rosanna, I'm coming to you next, but I really just want to put imposter syndrome back into that picture, because if you inflate your behaviors to a point that you yourself don't feel authentic about, so that's why I always like to take a bottom up approach. I would much rather focus on skilling up to become confident than appearing confident to jumpstart that virtuous cycle that Claire was saying.
I think the problem isn't the people that I'm talking about, i.e., me 12 months ago.
Yeah, that's really helpful. Thank you.
Is I had the skills, but I was so broken that I didn't feel confident. I didn't think I could tutor, let alone have a business. But I had to put on enough confidence to get me through that first session, that very first session where I felt so nervous, to then get into that cycle. I had the skills. I didn't need to skill up. And I know that sounds quite big-headed.
No.
But I didn't at that point. I could teach, I could tutor. I'd been tutoring for 17 years unofficially. But because I was so broken, I had to put on that front. And I'd been putting the front on in the classroom for probably the last 6 years. I was just so used to putting a mask on it. And then that's when neurodiversity comes in as well, because so many of us are so used to putting a mask on that confidence is just another layer of that mask. It's just another part of it. But once you start building the cycle, you realize that you can take the mask off and the confidence is underneath anyway.
Okay, so there's tons and tons of layers here that I really want to explore once everybody's had a chance to say their first pieces. I'm going to come back to this sort of difference between real confidence and fake confidence. Rosanna, can you talk about that journey of becoming a confident tutor, please?
Yeah, so as you know, imposter syndrome was something that I had quite a lot of, I would say, at the beginning. And I think that came from partly maybe lack of experience. Like when I did start tutoring full time, I did have a bit of tutoring experience, but obviously doing it full time is a very different thing. So I definitely struggled with that. I think I don't really want to say this because it sounds like it's going to come too much from external sources, but I think a lot of what helped me was that people said that I was good. And it did take a while for me to believe it, but I don't want to. The reason I was hesitant to say that is because even though it's true, I worry that sometimes we place too much of a focus on external sources for confidence when actually it should come from within. But I think it's kind of hard. Obviously, with tutoring, it is the kind of job where you do need feedback. Like if a tutor gets feedback that, you know, what they're doing is not working or whatever, that is going to affect things. So I think the nature of our job is such that you do need feedback. I don't necessarily want that to be the only source of confidence, though.
Really, really powerful. And I don't know if you've seen that. I did write about this in my book, this idea that we're so used to having a pat on the head. We're so used to being told, well done, and prizes and rewards and maybe salary increases or bonuses. And those are all, like you're saying, external validations. Now, there is something really, really objective that we can look for, because it's also not just bigging ourselves up. What we really
Yeah,
want is to measure impact.
definitely. And I think
Whatever impact
sometimes,
looks like.
yeah, one other thing I would say on that as well is that as much as I'm talking about feedback being important, I think true confidence comes from knowing when you're right, even if other people might think you're wrong. So, for example, when parents sometimes say, "Why didn't you do this with my child?" or you've done the lesson like wrong, or it wasn't in a way that suited. If you can come back and think, actually, it might not look like the right thing to do for you, but there's still benefit in what I've done. I think that's true confidence, where you're not necessarily having it dictated to you how you should do your job.
Absolutely. That you know what your principles are, what your motivations are. You've got clarity and therefore you can have a dialogue about what
Yeah,
it is that you've done and why.
yeah,
Sometimes you can discover that you're wrong, and that's confident as well. MJ,
exactly.
let's come to you so that we can keep going. Claire, just to welcome my lovely Claire Wilshire. The topic is confident tutors, confident students, and we're just gathering our first thoughts at the moment. MJ, go ahead.
Okay, my first thoughts are if you're not confident, it's easily picked up with body language.
Nice.
Um, and so that feeds off. So there are times where I've gone through dips and highs and I have to think about it. And also, one of the things that helped me alongside, as we discussed, Julia, I do a lot of tuition and initially was with looked after children, but I had a private student and she gained with her GCSEs much higher grades than she was expecting. And that sort of fed into my confidence. And as the years have gone by, I know now I can actually say I'm a very, very good science tutor. Um, and it works. And as long as I get the relationship right, initially, obviously all the kids are different. But yeah, and that's been through when I think about some of the stuff that I did in the beginning, I look back and I think, yeah, and it's belief also in the students when some of the teachers
Nice.
don't believe or that I've achieved with a student that was predicted and written off with level twos. She got fives, and that's
Amazing.
the difference. Yeah, belief.
We've spoken about the Pygmalion effect before, which is if you expect more from students, they are very, very likely to live up to those. I know that, Emma, that's what your teaching style was all about. And Claire, I think that's exactly what you described with your year 6 class. You showed up and you helped them to attain more than anyone expected from them. And part of that, MJ, is exactly what you're saying about believing in the students. And then, of course, the second part of that is helping them to believe in themselves. And I feel that that's where we're going to go in this conversation, because there's been a strong focus so far on how we believe in ourselves as tutors, right? And where we're really trying to get to is helping our young people to believe in themselves. Yeah. So it's a really powerful piece of personal development that then overspills, but it has to be predicated on something real. It's not just overinflating, a sense of self. Claire Wilshire, confident tutors, confident students. What does it mean to you initially?
It's a good question. I think it's taken me a few years to get confident. And sometimes, I think you look back and you go, sometimes you're like, oh my God, I can't believe how well they've done it, and yeah, it has taken a while because I've had a bit of a bashing at a school, off with stress for 3 weeks when I was working full time, and that knocks you. I've trained, I've got the top grade for training and stuff like that from that school, and then they start picking, and that really knocked me. So it's taken a while for my confidence to come back, and the fact that I'm in demand and stuff, I think, well, that must mean something.
Absolutely. It also means that you communicate with confidence, because in the tutoring context, you have to show up as a confident tutor in order to even get the work.
Yeah.
But I really want to think about having your confidence knocked, because Emma referred to that and Rosanna referred to the opposite of it, which is, if somebody challenges you, you know how to stand up for yourself. So firstly, initially, Jenna, we're so glad to see you. Participate whenever you're ready. Unmute yourself so that I can keep an eye. Unmute yourself when you want to speak, and I will understand that that's what that means. Claire, if you were in that same position now,
are you talking this Claire or the other
Claire Wilshire?
Oh, yeah, cool. Yeah.
If you were in that same position now, would you have known that they were, would you have had the confidence to reflect on whether or not they're right, and then not allow it to break you?
I think more so now, yeah, because I've got more experience. I know I'm good at it. But I actually prefer tutoring. Yeah.
Well, that's
I think Mary was saying, it's down to the individual as well. You get that relationship with that student, and it's just I love tutoring different students and seeing how low confidence in them builds up, and then that gives me confidence.
Sorry, you guys all need to know that Claire's biggest fan is actually in the room sitting next to me. Oh,
I need to talk to you about tomorrow.
All right, just park it, you two.
Wait, today is Elvis's 90th birthday.
I thought that was yesterday or the day before.
I thought Elvis left the building.
Wow.
Emma, if you were in that same position today, would your confidence have protected you? Your genuine confidence based on learning what you can actually do, would it have protected you from that toxic environment?
No, because I was confident at the beginning.
It wore you down.
Yeah. It destroyed my confidence. It destroyed me.
What was your confidence based on initially?
Initially, was based on my skill set and the skills that I'd developed before I went into the classroom. In various voluntary roles, I was already teaching as such. I'd already been tutoring. So when I went into the classroom, my PGCE year was very easy for me. I was very lucky. I was the first one on the course to be teaching full lessons and all of that. Like, that built my confidence. I knew I could do it. I knew I was a good teacher. And then 13 years later, I was broken.
Sorry. You didn't deserve that.
That happened to me.
I actually think, Mary Jane, it's happened to almost everyone in this room, except those people who are clever enough not to put themselves in the situation in the first place. Rosanna.
I had a global responsibility in my previous life, and the politics were nothing compared to the staff room.
Yeah. And it's interesting that, because sometimes I talk about QT as the nicest kind of staff room, and I really, really have to explain what I mean by that, because there's just cups of tea and professional development and none of the politics. Rosanna, what is your confidence based on?
This is confidence in the context of tutoring or in general?
I think we're going to stick with the context of tutoring right now.
Yeah, that's fine. What is it based on? Again, I think experience helps, definitely, in my case, because I think confidence is, whether it's, faked or genuine, it's having this air of knowing what to do or being able to handle anything that comes your way. That's kind of how I define confidence. So no matter what happens, you'll deal with it. It's that trust in yourself.
So when you're so for me, the phrase that I use is track record.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
yeah, I've seen enough. I had a lovely chat with Kaylee this morning about my son, and she just said to me, I've seen, I was sort of splurging all the things, and she was like, I've seen this lots of times before.
Yeah.
And that was really, really helpful. Just hearing that it wasn't just us felt really helpful. And her ability to communicate that experience was really, really reassuring to me. So I would suggest that when you show up with that experience and that track record, it definitely jumpstarts the confidence that the student and the parents have with you. And I always say this to training teachers. And I actually met with our lovely Sharona Adler-Posen recently, who's just doing a PGCE at the moment. And I was saying to her, every new class that you have to sort of get the hang of, the behavior management at the beginning of every new class, it's faster every time. Emma, Claire, I don't know if you'd agree with this, both Claires, it's faster every time because they know that they just get the sense that you've already been there, you've already been challenged, they've got nothing new that they can show you. Is that Claire Torbett, is that something that makes sense to you, that sounds relevant?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I do. And I think then, and because I've also done some supply work, and that's just a whole different ballgame.
Oh, that's really helpful. Go on.
Well, so like you say, like when you're in front of a class and they're your class, or, secondary, you get familiar with the classes that you've got, they know how to read you, you know how to read them, and they know what your cues are. And I think when you're a supply teacher, and that's what did me in the end, that's what made me leave the classroom as being a supply teacher. I've been very fortunate that I've never reached the whole burnout thing. I've gone along with our family circumstances, and that meant in the end that I was doing some supply, post-COVID supply, which is again different to pre-COVID supply.
Wow.
And yeah, no, that was in the end what made me like, I don't want this, and going into a new class all the time. And I mean, I did it as a pupil, you get the supply teacher, you're like, right, what boundaries can we play with here?
So it's just that I partly agree with you because there's no relationship there. When you say they read you and you read them, I agree with you. But your toolbox is full of clever things you could do with 30 children for an hour.
Yeah, but if you're new to them, they don't, it's so much harder work. And that's what can drain your confidence, because you whip out your toolbox and it doesn't work. And then you're like, oh.
So do you get that with new students when you're working one-to-one or in small groups? Do you also have that I'm starting from scratch here every single time?
No. And I think, I mean, you asked Rosanna a little while ago, like, where her confidence comes from. My confidence comes from the fact that I know without a doubt I was born to do this job.
My God.
I wanted to be a teacher from a very young age, and I did everything. Even when we filled out all the career questionnaires, I filled it out so that I know it would say you should be a teacher. And so I think I've always been pretty confident in what I do. So when I get new students, I know already that I can do something with them. And I had a new student start with me on Tuesday, and at the start of the session, it was in a group of 4. At the start of the session, she wouldn't say a word, and yet already by the end of the session, she was joining in more. So
I think it's particularly interesting, though.
Group.
I think that's really interesting in the group context, because what happened was she was sort of absorbed into the general confidence of the room, wasn't she? Like she saw that everybody feels safe here.
Yeah.
She saw that everybody has a go and asks a question here. And so that's a sort of like, it's in the culture, that confidence, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, no, and so as I say, that's where I think when you're tutoring and it's smaller, Jen has put something in the comment about, if they're choosing to be there. And I think on the whole, Do they choose? I don't know. Obviously, no one would do extra maths if they didn't have to do extra maths. Well, I would. But no, I just think that the dynamic is different and it's smaller, and you've just got. I'm losing my train of thought really, but
No,
you just
I'm going
fewer
to catch
people
you
to
in.
read and work with and build with.
Yeah, absolutely. And Emma made the same point in the chat before that there's a buy-in in tutoring, especially when they've already felt that they haven't succeeded in the classroom, or the classroom hasn't succeeded with them, and therefore this is their next chance. But I do want to go into. It seems to me that what we're saying is I think we know that the external context of the school environment or of society environment are knocking the confidence of both the adults and the children. And so there's this sort of constant depletion that's happening about confidence. And yet we here are trying to build bridges and trying to boost people. Jenna, go ahead. No, you're on mute. You're not on mute. Why can't I hear you? I do like your fireplace. Goodness me, your new place looks really interesting. Go ahead.
I rearranged my library.
Crackling.
Oh no, not again.
No.
Is it?
Yes.
Yay. Is it crackling?
Nope.
Huh, good. I don't know what I did. I just unplugged it and replugged it in a few times.
Very technical.
I think that obviously I've jumped in really late, so I apologize. But Dee gave me the title, or what I think might be a summary at least of what we're talking about, which is confident tutors create confident students. And from what I've heard and things we've talked about before, I think it comes back to two really key things: relationships and that connection with all parties, all stakeholders, but also comfort. It's about feeling comfortable, and I feel like that's the one linchpin in all areas, whether it's the relationship side of it or whatever. You can't be confident without feeling comfortable, even if it's comfortable enough.
Yeah, I think the enough is important there.
And I think it makes that difference, when you mentioned before about starting with new students versus being with a new class as a substitute. I think for me, I always have that panic, even now when I have a new student. But I think that I am so much more confident in that first session than I was even 5 years ago, because I know what I need to feel comfortable for myself, and I know what I can do to help my families and clients and young people feel comfortable as well in those first sessions.
So there's something about comfortable, something about safe that's coming along with confidence. I want to talk again about real and fake confidence, and really what real confidence is based on. And so far, we've only said experience, but I do think, and Emma mentioned skill set and the progress that she made in training. I really, really, really do believe that the best cure for imposter syndrome is training. Whatever that means for you, being constantly engaged in, I was a confident parent. I was constantly in parenting classes. So at least I know I didn't do a terrible job, and however they've turned out now is how, that's best case. Dee, go ahead.
Yeah, when I started tutoring 4 years ago, I'd been out of the secondary classroom for a long while. I'd been in a classroom, but in a very different setting. So I went looking for people who could help me learn, help me upskill. And that's, Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it. And I connected with people. And then about a year later, found Helen in a Mass Conf online session. And she told me about QT. And it it developed from there. I mean, my first year of tutoring, my mainstay was working with a home ed charity who were providing tutorials, and I was doing a Key Stage 3 and a Key Stage 4 session once a week. And I mean, I reflect on it now, and I still get chills about how ill-equipped I felt during that first year for all sorts of reasons. In a community centre, I was having to set up the classroom and dismantle it. The 8 to 12 kids had masks on. The desks were 2 meters apart. I was wearing a visor. I didn't know the kids. The parents weren't paying a huge amount for the kids to be there. Most of the kids were very disengaged, which was not, again, something I wasn't used to. I'd had 13 years of a room full of kids who were completely engaged in what they were doing. But I needed an income. I stuck with it. So I felt really fake for a very, very long time. But it did upskill me, and I was gradually building support around me. And then QT was the game changer for me. That combination of community plus the being but the conversations confirmed that I already knew a lot, but it also helped to identify those areas where, yeah, there was definitely work to be done. And QT and other things were able to help start to plug those gaps. Plus my own experience with a whole bunch of students who all had a unique set of needs and experiences and gaps and everything else. And every single day, even with students who I've known for 3 years, I can sense that gaps in my skills, whatever, however they might demonstrate themselves, whether it's into how I teach or how I relate to people, are very slowly being plugged by those experiences.
Yeah. What does all of this look like and feel like to your student?
I know my students feel comfortable and feel safe, because I can tell that from the body language when they turn up in a Zoom call. The WhatsApp groups, we're having a conversation in the week, and I will get messages from students saying, even if, it's only been a few days since I last saw them, I'm looking forward to seeing you again next week. So I'm getting that feedback. I can tell from my students that they're enjoying being in the room. I can see their confidence growing. I do a little bit of in-person work, and she's year 11 now. She's the one who got the most improved year 10 student at the end of last academic year, I'm constantly saying to her, Jess, you have the skills, you have the tools. And little by little, I can see that she's now believing that she does.
That is so powerful. Claire Torbett, go for it.
I had a year 8 group the other week, and as they left, one of them called out, "Thanks for having us." And I was like, yeah, you feel comfortable here.
Claire, what do you do for a job?
Oh, I don't know. I just sit around my dining table and have fun with kids. I mean, it's
it's that effortlessness, isn't it? And I think Jenna absolutely nailed it with comfort. But I really want to push you further and think about those kids who are lacking confidence, who come to you. And through your confidence, they become confident. And there's a certain element of metacognition in there, isn't there? Dee saying, you have the tools. When Dee's able to say, I was so confident, I even knew what things I wasn't sure about yet and knew how to go off and pursue them. That's what we want for our young people. One of mine is, she's working with Julie Shandley Edwards at the moment, and she texts her the day before and tells her what she'd like to work on. I mean, to me, that is so clever. To know what you want to work on is really, really clever. So again, and MJ, we've not heard from you for a while, and then Claire Wilshire, I'm coming to you. I want to hear about the young people that you work with and how your confidence inspires them to feel confident in themselves.
Well, just picking up on what you said, I do that with all of my students. I tell them that I want to know what they want to do, and they do text me or email me. I was interested in your WhatsApp group that you had for your students.
Yeah, each student, I have a WhatsApp me, the student, and at least one parent.
Okay.
So
But
there's instant communication. If there's tech problems, they can't turn up, but they can also very easily send me photos. So, and I ask regularly for, what are you doing in class? You know, what are your,
yeah.
and it's making them more aware of what they can and what they can't do. They have to know this stuff. If they're going to make progress, they have to know themselves, and they have to find ways to assess whether they know the stuff or whether they don't, how comfortable they are with it, and pass that on to me so I can support them in a way that's most appropriate.
Yeah, okay. So I do that. I thought you had WhatsApp group for all of them. That was just a miss. In terms of skilling, I don't know. Just it was experience. So just sort of as I went on, and you self-reflect really and think what's working and what's not working. But I do hand it over to them a lot. So in particular, if it's long term, and I'll remind them what we doing this week. What do you want to do? And yeah, they do respond and say, because I say, well, it's your time wasted because I can prepare a lot in advance if you tell me, and they get it. So that's fine.
Fantastic. And Claire Wilshire?
What was the original question? Because
Doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. Well, today, no, but I find every student different. I have either a relation. I think parents are different as well. I've got some parents that are really informative, going, right, they're doing this. So can they focus on this, or can they do this? Can they do that? And quite often, I don't really need to plan. I kind of like let them come in, go, right, how are you? What's been happening? Da-da-da. And I have an idea in my head what I want to do, but I'm very much led by them. But then I've got some that have no idea. And I said, right, what you're doing? Oh, I don't know. So I find them more difficult. And I think that communication is important to, with the parent, knowing what's going on at the school and things like that. And yeah, and that helps my confidence, because I feel, I don't know, when I'm with a student that doesn't know how, what's happening in school, what they're doing, I think my confidence is less. If I know I'm helping them and I know what's going on in their school, and I go, right, okay, you're doing this, I need to help you, support you with this sort of thing.
Tell you what this makes me think, and Emma, it's something that you said in the chat at the same time. Do you think that one of the reasons why working in school ruins confidence is because we're not actually able to help the children every day, right? So Claire, you're saying, if I know what you need, I'm able to give you what you need. Whereas if you're continually pushing through a long-term plan, in spite of the children and their progress, you actually, there's like a tension between what you should be doing and what you're actually. It's frustrating.
Yeah, because I can do so much more. There's one particular student, and I don't feel that I'm really 100% supporting her and helping her, because she's lost in science. Has had no good teachers, and it's too late. She's kind of come on the beginning of year 11, and it's too late. So I'm just trying to help as much as I can, even just to get a grade 4. But it's just, she's lacking in confidence, and I'm hoping that over time, I have seen the confidence increase. But you go over stuff you've done before, and I can't remember, I don't know what that is, and it's really hard. And you think, there must be so many other children like that in school, just lost.
Totally.
And it's heartbreaking. Yeah, just heartbreaking. But there's others, and I'm like one, and she's gone from combined up to separates, and she had no confidence. She couldn't answer a single question, and now she's getting grade 6s, and I'm like,
which round does it go? Do you become successful and then become confident, or do you become confident and then become successful? And I'm thinking about that little girl, the girl in Claire Torbert's group also. Yeah, she started off not being able to talk, and then by the end she was able to talk. Or Claire Wilshire, what you're saying, that she was getting a 2 and then she was getting a 6. So How does it happen?
I think you've got to believe that you can before you can.
Yeah.
But they also have to see evidence that they can.
Yeah.
So it's this is where we can work so powerfully with them to give them enough that they can do, that they think, yeah, I can do this, but they also appreciate that there is actually a little bit of challenge in there. So actually it's not just I can do this because it's really easy. I can do this because I now have the tools to do it.
That's right. And that's what I was thinking when Jenna said about comfortable. It's comfortable enough. That phrase, comfortable enough, because there has to be some stretch. Otherwise, you're just a marshmallow.
But also you've got to start with them, with their confidence. You've got to start low level, and then they're like, oh, I can do this. And then you increase it a little bit. And that's where the confidence is. It's like, remember doing this before? It's just the same here. And they're like, oh, okay, is that it? And it's like when they realise that they can actually answer a question and they were overthinking it. And it's like, I call it a light bulb moment. It's like,
yeah, but I love what you just said about remember what you did before, because firstly, you're showing them then their track record, and secondly, you're showing them that you're their witness. Yeah, I see what you're capable of. I'm here on the side. I'm cheering you on. All I'm going to do is point you to your journey here. Emma, what do you think?
I think at the beginning as well, it's showing that you're confident in them, even if you don't know them. The fact that there is an adult that's saying you can do this is really powerful, and it starts that cycle going, because if you believe in them, they'll try, then they see the confidence, and then it just builds on itself.
Yeah,
sometimes you don't have the time in the classroom to do that for them.
And it's that relationship, isn't it? Over time, that relationship builds up, and yeah.
But you know that there's lots of evidence of a spillover effect. They also call it a halo effect, where you build confidence in one area and it knocks onto everything else. And they say that it's about the relationship between effort and attainment. I see that when I work hard, I can achieve. Go on, Emma.
I think there's also giving them the confidence to fail. So I had a conversation with a student this morning who's just joined me, who's missed about 4 years of schooling, who is still aiming for a GCSE in the summer. And I had a really honest conversation with her and said, it's okay if you don't pass. I'm not going to give up on you if you don't pass in June. You just might need a different journey to every other year 11. It's okay. And the relief on her face of like, okay, so I can try now, because it doesn't matter if I fail. So giving them the confidence to get things wrong and learn from it is really powerful as well. You're on mute, Julia.
It's okay, but it does matter. It can't not matter. Young people, all of us, we need things to matter.
Yes, but it's not the end of the world, which is what they're told in school.
Yes.
If you fail in June, that's it.
Okay, here's my closing question to you. We've got 10 minutes. Do you feel safe to fail? Do you feel confident enough to fail? Do you? Look at your face. You know, we went all the way around the houses and we landed with our young people need to feel confident to fail, confident to have a go.
In what term do you think fail? What, fail the student or fail, I don't know,
Well, Emma, can you help me?
I think that's a really hard question, because it's something that I struggle with, failing and getting things wrong.
Because we are used to doing well at school.
I grew up in that culture of everything has to be right and you have to get 100%. And the day I got 5% on a maths test, I was distraught. And I think I carry some of that with me. I know I carry some of that with me. And I worry about failing as a business owner, and I worry about failing as a tutor, and I worry about failing as an employer, and I worry about failing as a mum, and all of that stuff. And I'm trying not to pass that on to everybody else around me.
Well, I want to reflect back to you that you are having a go in life, right? If
Yeah.
you weren't, you'd still be in the classroom shouting at people.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I would say that you are exactly brave enough to fail, confident enough to fail, because otherwise you wouldn't be trying.
I think my philosophy is if something's meant to be, it will be, and you're guided. So, with my business, if it wasn't meant to be, there would have been so many failures, boom, 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 that will guide you. Go, okay, I didn't succeed there. I'm going to try this way.
There's a sort of real openness.
Life is full of failures, but picture it as a guidance. Going, right, no, that's not where you're supposed to be. You're supposed to be this way. It's like when you're trying different things with businesses as well. Right, that doesn't work. So let's try something else, or let's try this SEO word or something. I don't know. But yeah, life is full of failures, but you've got to look at them as guidance, maybe.
And
Rosanna,
I think that
what are
knowing
your
that you, oh, sorry, I was going to add in as well, knowing that you've got the support network, that if it does happen, someone on this call once called out to us because she'd had a lesson that she didn't feel that she'd done as well as she could have. And she needed to offload that. And we all rallied round and were like, it's fine. It's a lesson. We've got you. We'll sort this out. And that's having your support. So I feel confident that I have that too.
Mm.
And that if I did fail in some way, it wouldn't be the end of the world. And like Claire, the other Claire says, it's a learning moment, isn't it? That's the thing as well. So
yeah, it's really, really interesting that. And that person who did that was so super cool because they were modeling for everybody how to hold space in a community and ask for help and feel safe.
Oh God, look at the clogs turning there. You can see.
Yeah. There are 100.
That's when I knew that I was in a good place as a tutor, was when I felt comfortable to admit that something had not gone the way I wanted it to, and that I needed to go and get help.
But what I want to reflect back is that there's 100 people in our WhatsApp group. So is 10% confident enough to ask? Where's everyone else? It's not easy. It's not easy. And I think what Emma said about, I was used to doing well at school. I was taught to be a perfectionist. Our young people are in the same situation and they are railing against it. Jen, I know that you know those young people so well. Rosanna, I'm coming to you. And then MJ, Dee, and Jenna, but 5 minutes. Sorry, go, Rosanna.
Yeah, it just reminded me what Claire was saying in particular about just modifying your approach if things don't go the way that you want. And I think I'm struggling to think of what would constitute failure as a tutor. The only thing I can really think is the same thing I would tell my students, which is if you don't try.
Nice.
Like the lack of effort rather than focusing everything on the outcome, really.
Really, really nice. Really nice. Also, I would say failure as a tutor is failing to be safe, failing to create. I mean, because that's our foundation. And that's not nothing, because sometimes it's about health and safety, and sometimes it's about safeguarding, and sometimes it's simply about not losing your patience.
Yeah, I think there's a difference between failing to come up with or observe the basic requirements like safety, professionalism, stuff like that. And then there's a kind of broader type of failure, which is the next level up, so to speak. But yeah, there's the basics and then there's the more
failure.
Yeah, exactly. It's a different kind, I think.
Yeah. And I think, having a go and putting in the effort is absolutely true. And focusing on that effort rather than on outcomes is always, as we say, really, really healthy. Okay, MJ.
I think I know myself enough that I go through cycles of failing, picking myself up, and rebooting. I've just gone through a cycle.
Yeah.
So
yeah. And
I'm on a reboot, climbing up again. So
absolutely.
It does happen.
Yeah, it does happen.
And you might get a student that it's not working, and you have to say, okay, I think you better find another tutor.
Yeah.
And I've done that actually quite a few times. That's the beauty of it.
It is, and it really does.
That's not failing, though.
Yeah.
No. Well,
yeah.
Well,
yeah.
It might
fair
feel
enough.
a little bit like, I can't help everybody, but it's not. It's the right relationship. you're not bonding and have that bond, it's
Then you'd only be failing by not being honest about it.
Yeah, I think you'd be doing someone a disservice if you carried on when it wasn't right. So it's better to walk away sometimes.
So doing somebody a disservice would fall into the category of failing.
Yeah, exactly. So it's the opposite of what you might think. Some people think that in order to succeed, they have to hold on to things relentlessly. But I think that's a misunderstanding, really.
Beautiful.
And you
Fair
can't be everything and do everything and be right for everyone.
why not? I thought I was.
Well, no, you are, but the rest of us
No,
are.
far from it.
Dee, it's your go, and then Jenna, I'm coming back to you.
Yeah, something I've just seen in the comments that by walking away, you're demonstrating that confidence in what you can do, what you can offer, and the best way that you can serve that student. And if you can't do that, then you're succeeding in giving them the opportunity to move somewhere else.
Right, and that's your commitment, really, is helping them to get what they need. Jenna?
I think it all comes back to almost like a Maslow's hierarchy of needs type thing. You have to have foundations. You have to have your needs being met in order to be successful. And that goes, like, one of the things I put in chat was about having a baseline of stability and security. If you don't have that solid framework to build on, everything could collapse. And whether that's stability in your life and solidity in your life to be able to take risks and know that you are safe in whatever way that looks like, whether that's safe in your sessions or in your day-to-day life. If you are, as an educator or the young person, in a state of trauma, of fight or flight and that kind of response, you're not in a place to build on foundations. You're not in a place to have that level of growth. You're still potentially able to grow, but your growth is going to be very, very different. And it's always coming back to the reason I always go back to comfort is because it's about having your needs met first. If your needs are being met, then you can do other things.
I think that's really, really helpful. And it reminds us that our young people need to feel ready to learn. They need that whole fight or flight piece is really important. I hope that you feel ready to learn this year, because I think it's going to be a wonderful, wonderful year for us. Rosanna has suggested that next week we talk about planning. There you go. I've planned next week's session. You guys can do the rest. Have a wonderful week. Thank you so much, MJ. Thank you, Dee. Thank you, Rosanna. Thank you, Claire. Thanks, Jenna. Thanks, Emma. Thank you, Claire. You guys are the best. Bye.
Do you think